In 2016, Bianca Carrasco was taking her independence back after separating from her husband, Joe Daniel. But he said one night she stormed off after an argument and he never heard from her again. And since then, her family has been asking, where is Bianca? I'm Charlie and welcome to Crimelines. Welcome to Crimelines, or welcome back, and welcome to this week's episode. I have a couple thank yous for this episode I need to send out. One is to Haley Gray from Haley Gray Research. Once again, thank you for introducing me to this case. I love how Haley has turned her passion for research into advocacy for so many of these unsolved cases. She has done incredible work with this one and provided me with the foundational research that I used in making this episode. I also want to send a huge thanks to Bianca's sister Giovanna for looking over the script and hopping on a call with me just to make sure that everything presented was, first of all, accurate, and second, it caused the least amount of negative impact to those who have been left to pick up the pieces. And also another huge thank you to Bianca's friend Julie, who also took a look at the script and helped me tweak a few things, again, making sure everything was accurate. Today we're talking about Bianca Carrasco, who was born in July of 1986 in Odessa, Texas. When she and her sister were young, they ended up moving across the state to the Houston area, and that's where they grew up, mostly under the care of their father. Their father was not interested in them maintaining much of a relationship with their mother or even their extended relatives on that side of the family. But the sisters, they had each other, and they were very close. Bianca eventually had the chance to reconnect with her mother when she was around 18, but it was through a domino of events that led to it. Her father was very strict, so when Bianca got pregnant at 17, he sent her to live with someone else. She then placed that baby for adoption, and it is my impression that this wasn't entirely Bianca's choice, but rather something she was pressured into doing. It was after this loss, with a broken heart, that Bianca moved to Odessa so that she could be with her mom and connect with that side of her family. I'm sure she was looking for a type of support she didn't think she could find back at home. This didn't turn out to be the grand reunion she had hoped for. Bianca's mother had long dealt with substance abuse, and being the child of an addicted parent is emotionally complicated. Bianca was trying to navigate it while also trying to build a relationship with her mother, while also trying to heal from the aftermath of the adoption. And it was during this time frame in 2004 that 18-year-old Bianca met 29-year-old Joe Daniel Carrasco. The connection to Daniel was a little messy. He had been married to Bianca's aunt, so he was technically her ex-uncle. There are some rumors that he and Bianca started seeing each other while he was still with her aunt, but I want to dispel that. While it may seem like more of an unsavory story if we let that fly, the truth is it doesn't work with the timeline at all. The two had separated already due to another issue in their marriage, and they were finalizing their divorce when Daniel and Bianca started dating. One of the things Bianca saw in Daniel was the promise of stability. She went from her strict father's home to being pressured into placing a child for adoption, only to then have her reunion with her mother not go as well as she had hoped. But Daniel, he had a decent job, and at 29, he was more established than Bianca could imagine being at 18. She wanted to feel safe and protected and cared for, and Daniel promised all that. Daniel and Bianca had 2 children together early in their relationship, and then they got married. And while those kids were still pretty young, Bianca went to Odessa College for a licensed vocational nursing program. In most states, this is known as a licensed practical nurse, and it's the same thing and the same license, just 2 different names for it. This was one of those programs where you go for 12 months straight without any long breaks in between, and it was in this program that she met her friend Julie, who I have been in touch with for this episode. Spending pretty much every weekday together for months meant Julie and Bianca became very close. They lived near each other, they were both moms, and so they studied together, drove to class and clinicals together, and then even after their graduation in 2009, they went to work at the same hospital. Bianca was very caring and organized, which are two skills definitely needed in nursing. But she was also fun and loved music and joking around, which really helped put the patients at ease. Bianca was working in the field for a couple of years before having a third child, and then she and Daniel decided to pack up the kids and move their family to San Antonio. In San Antonio, they bought a house, and Bianca enrolled in nursing school yet again, this time to become a registered nurse. She would be able to do more in her nursing career while also increasing her salary potential once she finished. Bianca juggled school while caring for her 3 small children, and this could not have been easy because Daniel worked in the oil fields. That meant he was gone for a week and then came home for a week and then he was gone again. But Bianca got things done and she was able to manage it all. The only thing that didn't seem to be going well was her relationship with Daniel. Their marriage, which was never completely smooth sailing, reportedly got a lot rockier after the move to San Antonio. With Bianca getting an education and establishing a career as their 3 children got older, she was also getting more independent. She was no longer that 18-year-old looking for someone to guide her and shape her along her way. We do so much growing and developing in our 20s. So when people marry in their late teens or their early 20s, or at least one of them is that young, growing apart is a common issue, and it definitely happened here. Their lives were separating, and around the time of Bianca's graduation from nursing school, they made the separation official for their marriage. Well, sort of. They emotionally separated, and they were no longer presenting themselves as a married couple. Bianca even changed her Facebook relationship status to divorced. But since they owned a house together, and Daniel was gone at least 50% of the time anyway, they continued to share their living space. It was a matter of making nice for the sake of the kids when they were both home, but outside of that, they really weren't speaking. Bianca hadn't confided in many people leading up to the separation, so no one's quite sure exactly when the decision was made. During the separation, Bianca started expressing some doubt that she could support her 3 kids by herself. She was working as a nurse at a cancer center, but thinking about going from being a 2-income family to everything just being on her shoulders was overwhelming. Bianca told her sister Giovanna that maybe the kids would be better off living with Daniel, who had more resources. But Giovanna talked her out of giving him custody since it wasn't really what she wanted to do. Giovanna was able to reassure Bianca that as a registered nurse, she could make more money. The earning potential was there, especially as she gained experience. She just had to be patient as she looked for a better paying job. So Bianca tried to keep things together in the home while she looked for that career path that would allow her to support her kids on just her income. But before she could find that dream job, the separated but living together situation fell apart. In the spring of 2016, Daniel decided he wanted to work on their marriage. And for a lot of people, that would mean something like marital counseling. But for Daniel, it meant quitting the job that took him away from home, getting a new job in San Antonio, and then losing that job because he was busy, allegedly, stalking Bianca. And I'm very specifically calling this alleged behavior stalking because stalking isn't just following someone around in a physical sense. Stalking, according to Rain, is a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, harassment, contact, or any other course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. And this alleged behavior fits that definition. On Wednesday, April 27th, 2016, Daniel managed to get into Bianca's phone to figure out who she had been talking to. and he ended up learning that she was seeing a man we are going to call Jason. Some media outlets say things like Bianca was talking to other men, but that doesn't appear to be true. It was just Jason, a singular man, and Bianca was pretty serious about him. Media outlets have also referred to Bianca's relationship with Jason as an affair, even though Daniel and Bianca were separated. Now, it's up to you if you think married but separated is too early to start dating or not, but when Daniel found out about it, he certainly was not happy. In retaliation, and in an attempt, in my opinion, to limit Bianca's options for leaving, Daniel then emptied their joint bank account. Bianca sent her sister a text on April 28th, telling her all about it. All of the money had been moved to an account that she did not have access to. Bianca was cut off from the money she had been earning, and without that money, how could she leave? Daniel also called Jason and told him that Bianca was his wife and they were not divorced yet. Jason didn't know that Bianca was still legally married, and this seems like a lie of omission on Bianca's part that she didn't tell him that they were separated but not yet divorced. Jason told Bianca he wasn't comfortable continuing the relationship while she was still technically married. They're back. I want to thank June's Journey for sponsoring this podcast yet again, but also for sponsoring my downtime because I love to play this game, usually at night while I'm trying to unwind. At the core, June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game. So you are finding objects from the parlors of New York to the sidewalks of Paris, all while moving through this storyline, bringing you back to the glamour of the 1920s. You play as June Parker, who's an amateur detective who is trying to uncover a scandalous family secret. And her job, which means it's your job, is to uncover the truth behind the unexplained death of her sister. And while I love the hidden object part of the game, I love how cleverly they're hidden, I love how beautifully illustrated the scenes are, the thing I actually like the most about this game is that whenever I open the app, ready to unwind, there's always something to do. Whether I am customizing my own estate island, or I'm playing with or against other players in the detective club, or I'm collecting scraps of information about the different characters in the story, I never run out of things to do. Whether you're craving a good mystery or just looking for an escape, discover your inner detective when you download June's Journey for free today on iOS and Android. There are some stories from my uncle's life that I truly never get tired of hearing, from hilarious to heartfelt, tear-jerking to plot-twisting. His retelling of events always brings me joy, and just in time for Father's Day, I found the perfect gift that captures all of his stories for my family forever. It's called Storyworth. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your father, grandfather, uncle for years to come. Storyworth makes this process so easy. Each week, they email your loved one with a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick. I recommend sending them the one, did you get along with your siblings? Because then you get a look at the entire generation. Then all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. Long, short, doesn't matter. After that year of writing, Storyworth compiles all of these stories and even photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. It's a great heirloom to pass down through the generations, and you can even keep a copy of the book for yourself. We've already done Storyworth with a family member, so we've done the full year and have the book. We ended up ordering extras so that more people can have them. We love to read the stories, and we find that they come up in everyday life, even though they're stories we didn't know until we got that book. Give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift that you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/crimelines. That's storyworth.com/crimelines to save $10 on your first purchase. And then, according to Bianca's coworkers, Daniel started threatening her over text. These texts went to a new phone Bianca got since she didn't trust the old one that Daniel had managed to get into. And in these texts, he threatened to show up at her work and he threatened to kill her. One day, she even left work early, hoping to avoid a public confrontation. And after showing her coworkers the text messages, Bianca said if she went missing, they would know what happened to her. So something about Bianca is that she was a little bit sassy and she had a bit of a dark sense of humor at times. And so it may have been a little hard for her coworkers to judge in the moment if she truly thought she might be in danger or if she was being a little hyperbolic with that statement. But in hindsight, the fact that I'm talking about her on a true crime podcast, it's worth mentioning. In my opinion, everything Daniel was doing was to undermine Bianca's will and ability to divorce him. She was already worried she couldn't take care of the kids on her own, and Julie speculates that those seeds of doubt may have been sown by Daniel. Then he removed the financial means she would need to move or hire an attorney. Next, he broke up the relationship Bianca had been building during the separation, before he finally resorted to scare tactics to keep her stuck in the marriage. But it all backfired. All of this told Bianca she had to get out sooner rather than later. She spoke with a friend on April 30th, 2016, and then again on May 1st, and mentioned that she was getting ready to leave Daniel. The friend asked Bianca what was going on, and she said that Daniel had changed, and he was being controlling. She was looking for a better paying job and wanted to know if her friend's workplace was hiring. And Daniel was aware that Bianca wanted a divorce because she told him that directly. There was no reconciling, no matter what he did to try to make her stay. On Sunday, May 1st, 2016, Bianca talked to her sister Giovanna on the phone around 2 p.m. The call was a bit of a vent session on everything going on with Daniel, and Giovanna even offered to have the kids come stay with her for a little bit to just get them out of the house and away from the arguing. Bianca said it would be fine because she had an appointment on May 6th to meet with the divorce attorney. Daniel had left her feeling like she wouldn't be able to support the kids on her own, so she wanted to talk to a lawyer about her options and what to expect. Her primary concern going forward was the custody of her kids. But Giovanna said that Bianca didn't seem too stressed about it, so I think she was able to see through Daniel's tactics that made her feel like she had few options. On this same call, Bianca also told Giovanna about a weird thing that happened. She was sleeping, and around 2 a.m., she woke up to find Daniel just standing there over her, and it really creeped her out. This was yet more motivation to physically separate from Daniel. The next day, on Monday, May 2nd, Giovanna tried to call Bianca, but the call went straight to voicemail like her cell phone had been turned off. So Giovanna called the office where Bianca worked, and they said Bianca hadn't come in that day. She was on the schedule, and it wasn't like her to not call or show up. So then Giovanna called Daniel to check to see if everything was okay. She reached him later in the evening, and he told Giovanna that he hadn't seen Bianca since the night before. He said that they had gotten into a nasty fight on Sunday night after Bianca had put the kids to bed, and eventually Bianca just stormed out of the house on foot, presumably to go cool off. And here's where it gets a little weird. According to the Charlie Project, Daniel said he left for work with their youngest child, who was 4 years old at the time, and he left the other 2 kids home alone sleeping. As he was driving towards work, he said he saw Bianca walking down the street. Giovanna told the Murder Diaries podcast that she asked Daniel why he left the 2 other kids alone. It's not like they were teenagers, they were 9 and 10. He said that he thought Bianca was walking back to the house. Now, there were a number of reasons Giovanna didn't believe Daniel. For one, it really wasn't in Bianca's character to storm off like that, particularly when it meant going out for a walk after dark. But the most glaring issue was that Daniel said he left to go to work. But what work? As far as Giovanna knew, he was unemployed at the time. And even if he wasn't, what kind of job did he have that he could take a small child with him, but only the one, leaving the other 2 home alone? The next morning on May 3rd, when Bianca didn't show up for work again, her supervisor called Giovanna and let her know. Giovanna was going to go ahead and call the police, but before she did, she wanted to talk to Daniel one more time. And he told Giovanna that he didn't think they should report Bianca missing because she left on her own and she was probably just off with another man. But he admitted when Giovanna asked about it that Bianca had left her purse, her car, and all of her belongings behind. And most notably for Bianca's family, she left her children behind. So that's when Giovanna called the San Antonio police to report her sister missing. They then referred her to the Houston police, which is where she lived, and they went out to take a report. They asked her why Bianca's husband hadn't called, and she said she didn't know, so the officer called Daniel right there on the spot. And according to what Giovanna told the Murder Diaries podcast, Daniel told them they had the wrong number and hung up on them. Daniel did eventually talk to the police, and he told them much the same story that he had already given Giovanna. According to the police report, he told them that Bianca had an affair and had given him back her wedding ring. Giovanna later clarified on Facebook that the ring part wasn't true. But with a story of a possible affair out there, the police did go speak with Jason. They wanted to know if he knew anything or had heard from Bianca. He was out of town at the time they went to his house, but his mother was there, and she told the police that a woman with brown hair had been at the house on Saturday, April 30th. She stayed late until 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, at which time her husband picked her up. This seemed like a promising lead at first, but they were soon able to confirm with Jason that the woman was not Bianca. It was another close friend of his, but the description the police had given her was vague enough that it fit both Bianca and this other woman. Jason said he didn't know anything about Bianca's disappearance, and the last he had heard from her was on Sunday night. The police also tried to ping Bianca's phone, but they found that it was not turned on. But it was using her phone records that they did have that they were able to build a timeline for the day leading up to Bianca's disappearance. After talking to Giovanna that Sunday, Bianca ran some errands and texted her daughter while she was out. She then got home before 8 p.m. to put the kids to bed, and then at 8:08 p.m. she texted Jason, and then at 8:38 p.m. she called him, though it's not clear if she actually spoke with him. At 10:22 p.m., Bianca's phone powered down, and then it was never turned back on. Based on the cell tower records, the phone was at or near her home when it went offline. At the same time Bianca's phone was turned off, Daniel made a call from his own cell phone. Unfortunately, we don't have much information on that call or anything else from Daniel's cell phone. The police are holding back that information, which is pretty frustrating. As the family has set up searches over the years, knowing where Daniel's phone was would really aid in these searches, as Daniel was and is the best lead they had. On May 3rd, a Be on the Lookout was put out for Bianca, and her missing person status was soon upgraded to at risk. Then on May 4th, someone at the daycare Bianca's youngest child attended called Child Protective Services. The report said that the worker was aware Bianca was missing and was concerned for the safety of her children. Daniel had admitted that he left to go to work with the youngest when his older kids were sleeping. They had called him to let him know that they had gotten up, but Bianca wasn't there to take them to school. He explained that he couldn't leave work until his 3 p.m. break, but he was working in Odessa. By the time he drove all the way back to San Antonio, he couldn't have gotten home to his kids until around 8 p.m. So they had been home alone that entire time. Because of the concerns of domestic violence in the home towards Bianca, who was missing, and because Daniel admitted he left his kids home alone all day, CPS asked Daniel for a parental child safety placement. This is kind of a step below foster placement. It means CPS determined there was a reason to believe the children could not safely live in the home, but rather than pulling them and placing them where CPS determined, Daniel was given an opportunity to choose somewhere for the kids to live while CPS investigated. There was some back and forth with this, but eventually they ended up being placed with Bianca's sister Giovanna while the CPS investigation continued. And of course, the investigation into Bianca's disappearance also continued. Information on Bianca was sent out to media outlets and flyers were handed out and posted around town. And this information given out included a description of what Bianca was last seen wearing. Since Daniel was the last one to see her as she supposedly left for this walk, he was the source of this information. Daniel said Bianca was wearing a blue denim jacket, multicolored leggings that were in various shades of pastel, and wedge shoes. She was also carrying her pink Prada purse and had a black Prada wallet with her. This outfit didn't sound, to those who knew Bianca well, like anything she would have been wearing, but beyond that, it was a direct contradiction to what Daniel had previously told to Bianca's sister Giovanna. Giovanna had asked him straight out what Bianca was last seen wearing, and he told her he couldn't remember. But then he came up with something later when the police asked him, and he described something that those who know Bianca don't believe she would have been walking around in. And of course, the other issue was the purse she was carrying. He had told Giovanna that Bianca left her purse behind, specifically saying she left it in her car. But when the police asked, he said she had it with her. Without probable cause for a warrant, the authorities would need Daniel's consent to search the family home and the vehicles, which he actually ended up giving them a few days after Bianca was reported missing. Daniel told the police he was moving out of the house anyway since he couldn't afford to live in it, and he consented this search to happen before he left. The family was initially told that Daniel's vehicle was also searched, but they've said they have since learned that search didn't actually happen. If these searches generated any leads for the police, we don't know because they have not released that information. There have been a number of other searches, particularly of Bianca's neighborhood, and Texas EquiSearch came in. This organization is amazing and they do great work. However, there is a limitation to what they do that not everyone is aware of. They work with verified information only, and that information almost always has to come from law enforcement. So they came in and they searched in and around Bianca's neighborhood, since that is where her phone last pinged. The family had hoped to have more searches done outside of the immediate area, particularly along the path Daniel drove that day that he loaded up his 4-year-old and left his other kids home alone. But when they asked the police for Daniel's cell phone tower information so they could figure out what that area was, the police said they could not release it due to privacy concerns. As for where Daniel said he was, he told Andrew Lofholm with News 4 San Antonio that he was out in Odessa for work. Odessa is a 5-hour drive from San Antonio. That's 340 miles and a lot of land to cover without more specific information on which route he took and any off-the-beaten side trips that he may have taken. If Daniel had done something to Bianca and she wasn't intercepted by someone while she was out for that walk that night, the search area was just far too large to search without more information. That information may be in his cell phone records, which have not been released to those organizing the searches. On the other hand, for all the family knows, those phone records may exonerate Daniel and show it was impossible for him to have been involved in the time frame he had. They don't know because they're missing that rather key piece of information. There was something else Daniel said in this brief interview with News 4 San Antonio that stood out to me. He said that he was working in Odessa while they were finalizing their divorce. But I looked into this and they were not finalizing anything. Like most states, Texas makes this pretty easy to look up, and no papers had been filed before Bianca disappeared. And Daniel didn't file for divorce himself until July of 2023. And by that point, Bianca had been missing for over 7 years. Not long after the News 4 San Antonio piece ran, The police said they could not rule out homicide in Bianca's case. They've never named a suspect, though obviously they were looking into both Daniel and Jason as they were the two men in her life. The family was told that Jason has been cleared, but he's the only person who has. It's the understanding of Bianca's family that though Daniel did speak to the police in the days after Bianca went missing, he has not done so since. He did agree to take a polygraph, but then he talked to an attorney, and we know no attorney is going to advise their client to take a police-administered lie detector test, so he ended up not taking it. Daniel has also not participated in any searches, awareness campaigns to pass out flyers, or anything else that other people were doing to look for Bianca. And then, about 6 months after Bianca's disappearance, Daniel got custody of his kids back. And when he did, he cut off Bianca's family from contact. Since Bianca's disappearance, no one in her family has heard from her. Her bank account has remained untouched and was eventually closed with over $600 sitting in it. Bianca has not renewed any license she had, like her nursing license or even her driver's license. There has been no evidence that Bianca has been staying away of her own free will. At the time she went missing, Bianca Carrasco was 29 years old, and she would now be 37. She had shoulder-length brown hair and brown eyes. She is 5'1" and 125 pounds, and she has two distinguishing marks, the letter B tattooed on her hip and a large surgical scar on her abdomen. Dental records and DNA are on file for Bianca in the event unidentified remains are found. The advocates in this case, including her sister and her friend, are asking people to share this story, whether it's posters on social media or sharing podcast episodes. I'll have photos up on my social media if you just want to share from there. Someone out there likely heard or saw something, or they were told what happened, and they need to come forward. No misplaced loyalty is worth Bianca's children never learning what happened to her or thinking that their mother just abandoned them. Anyone with information is asked to contact the San Antonio Police Department at 210-207-7660 or call Crime Stoppers at 210-224-STOP. These numbers will be in the show notes. Thank you for listening. If you want more content, check out my other show, Crimelines and Consequences, wherever you get your podcasts. I also offer bonus content and ad-free listening at patreon.com/crimelines or through the Apple Podcast app. If you want to buy me a coffee, the official drink of Crimelines, you can give a one-time donation at basement4productions.com/support.